Hello and welcome to Daily Politics, reaching you from Trust TV here in Abuja. On this program, we discuss issues around politics, policy, and governance. I am Suleiman, and I am back again. Tonight, we look at corruption and political accountability in the execution of constituency projects. Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing issues around corruption and political accountability in constituency projects. Now, a lot of people know they have constituency, but not everyone knows that there are constituency projects captured in every year's budget. So maybe that's where we should start. How familiar are Nigerians? Are with this issue of constituency projects in general? Are people actually familiar with them? That in their budgets annually, their federal representatives as senators and House of Reps, actually sponsor certain projects in the budget as part of their constituency project. Are Nigerians really fully aware of this?
Well, the answer is yes and no.
Okay.
Yes, in the sense that when politicians are politicking during their campaign season, they will likely tell their voters that, okay, we're going to bring this borehole, we're going to bring this road, or we're going to bring this federal project to our constituency. So that is on one angle, but that is just politicking. But in reality, the actual project they may put there is not related to the one they earlier mentioned because of several factors. It might not be approved, the amount might be too much, it might be unrealistic, like most political talk is unrealistic. So they will not know the second aspect. So when they now bring it, they are not likely to know that this is actually what they are supposed to do to monitor for their own benefit. Yes, sir. So I think the advocacy needs to deepen for people to know that this project is supposed to be for their own constituency.
Thank
but
you.
It is very low.
Thank you, Mr. Ame. You have reported on this issue. This ICPC reports. What is it coming now? 2020 and 2022. That's a fairly lag of time. What is it coming now?
Well, the report actually is the second phase of their findings, and coming now has no particular political coloration. But it is good it is coming now so as to keep the electorate informed about the activities of their representatives. And they should, as a matter of fact, hold them to account for what they do and for either what they do or what they fail to do as lawmakers. And I think Nigerians should be more critical of the leadership of this country at every level, from the federal, state, and local government. People must begin to ask questions. We must begin to probe the activities of public office holders. And this particular report gives insights into what lawmakers, particularly from some of the states, have been able, what lawmakers, some of the infractions that have arisen in the course of executing projects that they sponsored. And their electorates are supposed to look at these issues critically and be able to make informed decisions, because some of them might be seeking re-election. And not just that, they should be able to ask and demand that they be prosecuted, because the findings are far-reaching and they are quite explicit. There were instances where the ICPC had to recover properties that were not put to use in the interest of the constituents. And they literally went there, seized those items and deployed them for what they were meant for. So the timing, for me, is very important, especially at this period when we are going into elections.
Thank you. Malam, this idea of going into elections makes it all the more interesting, because if you look at the history of constituency projects. It has always been quite controversial, right from 1999, when people were talking about that, okay, constituency projects, there cannot be constituency project because executing projects is an executive level kind of activity in government. You know, it's not legislature's job. Legislature, you know, so in the end, they found a balance between the legislators and the executive. You know, you recommend and then happen. But these reports are showing that still the lawmakers have influence in the execution process. Why is that? Why is that happening? Why?
Okay, you see, if you want to combat corruption, especially grand corruption, you have to use policy. Now, fortunately, this is a policy that has actually created room for 2 trillion naira, like you said, since the year 2000 till date. 2 trillion naira cannot be accounted for. And I'm sure my colleague, if he does his research deeper, you find that the implementation level could be less than 20%.
True.
Why? Now, it's the policy itself that created that pool, that drain pipe for 2 trillion naira just to go. Why? Like you rightly said, constituency projects are components of capital, they are capital components, infrastructure-wise. So it's a function of the executive. What the legislature could do without making a policy, government policy, is, okay, you can go and influence, go and lobby, go and advocate. Let's not use the word lobby. Go and advocate for certain infrastructure to be brought to my local government. Now, that is a function of already the governor is doing it and the local government chairman is doing it. So the whole concept for me is the problem, the policy itself.
Thank you.
Now, once you have done that now, so much has gone down the drain. The same legislator or lawmaker is the one that will influence it, in the sense that when they had an agreement, okay, it should be implemented by the executive, but reports have it from other media agencies apart from Premium Times that is the legislator that actually brings the contractor.
Yes.
You see, I've created the next layer of corruption.
Yes.
Now, when the legislator has brought the company or companies and duplicate them to do the contract or not to do it, you have created more problem for ICPC. So I know ICPC is doing very well, I must say. But for me, they are going into an ocean to catch just a few fish and come out. Because it's a larger problem within the procurement fraud industry that we're talking about. So you're looking at constituency project, 2 trillion. If you count how much was spent on capital from year 2000 till the date, it's probably more than 20 trillion.
Absolutely.
So what are you going to get from that? So it's to look at the procurement sector. It's a problem of the procurement sector and process.
Thank you very much. I will definitely come back to that, because that's one of the accusations against the ICPC when it talks about when it started the constituency tracking project, project tracking. It was initially focused on constituencies only, and then there was an outpour of concern, and then they now extended it to the executive and so on. But with this report, it mentions senators from 3 states alone. As a reporter, I find that number quite small, in relation to our general understanding of the scale of corruption across various levels of governance in the country. Why 3 states?
Well, if you look at the report, it is not just the 3 senators, there are other lawmakers. And as a matter of fact, the report says it's titled interim report, which means there will be more details as to other individuals who are involved in the exercise, probably who have been indicted by the anti-corruption agency. So it is not targeted at just 3 senators. Okay. Of course, we know constituency project in Nigeria is steeped in fraud, and there could be more lawmakers that are involved in it. But in this interim report, these lawmakers are these 3 lawmakers are the ones that we have been able to identify, and it's just the first aspect of the report. So we intend to do more reports on the issue. So it is not just about the 3 lawmakers. Okay. There are other individuals whom we are going to report on in the coming days and weeks. So it's not just targeted at just the three lawmakers.
Thank you. So, Malum, let's take up that issue about a drop in an ocean, because constituency projects, the 2 trillion we're talking about is averagely 100 billion a year. A small agency of the federal government, of the executive, will probably be budgeting more than 100 billion a year. And this one is for all the constituencies across, 100 billion for the entire 22 years that we're talking about, from 2000 to date. 2 trillion is even less than 100 billion annually, which is probably less than the budget of a single unit in a single ministry in the executive. So is the ICPC chasing shadows, just to give, because Nigerians are generally angry with their legislators. People see the legislators as representatives of corruption, whereas they have, there is quite maybe more going on in other branches of government.
Okay, maybe the philosophy of ICPC is rather do something rather than do nothing.
Okay.
So probably that is why they decided, okay, let's at least focus on this area because it's targeted. At least they know what they are looking for. But the argument still remains. Last year, our budget was about 8-something trillion.
Yes.
Now, out of that 8-something trillion, about 2-something trillion, there's debt servicing and there was recurrent. Let's assume 2 trillion in a year is for capital expenditure.
Yeah.
That is what we are talking about. That is what I expect the ICPC to look at. That is the money going to be spent by NDAs in all the procurement processes. So like you said, the constituency is because the legislators are always being attacked, and for good reason. They're always being attacked. If you look at the time when they were giving, government spent so much money during the COVID era where they were giving palliatives.
Yes.
Somehow they had an agreement, it was gone through the legislators, and you media reported all over in their warehouse, including some governors, in their warehouse were finding all these things being kept. So the legislators brought this onto themselves,
Absolutely.
the lawmakers, for their lack of performance.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we are discussing issues around the call by the Northern Elders Forum for President Muhammadu Buhari to resign, and of course the support for that by some religious leaders and religious organizations in Kaduna yesterday. And with me is Dr. Akim Baba Ahmad, who is the Director of Publicity and Advocacy of the Northern Elders Forum. Welcome once again, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. So before let me start where I should start. One of the more punchy sentences in the statement that you read, which I read. The administration of President Muhammadu Buhari does not appear to have answers to the challenge of security to which we are exposed. We cannot continue to live and die under the dictates of killers, kidnappers, rapists, and sundry criminal groups that have deprived us of our right to live in peace and security. This is what one of the major statements that was quoted throughout, by several newspapers. So maybe I should start by asking, what is the motivation for this statement that you issued, for the call as a whole?
Well, the motivation is simply our understanding of the reality in which we live. Our statement says everything there. President Buhari became president 7 years ago.
Yes.
He inherited some security problems. Boko Haram was active in the northern part of the country. Some activities around militancy substantially contained by President Erdogan, showing their signs under Jonathan. But basically, that was the challenge. And President Buhari was elected because he said, I can deal with Boko Haram, I'll finish Boko Haram. And President Buhari told President Jonathan, when he was General Buhari, before he became president, he said, President Jonathan, you have failed to secure the country, resign. Nigerians don't remember
You
this.
mean President Buhari himself said this?
General
when he,
President
okay.
Buhari, as a candidate of the APC,
Okay.
said to President Jonathan, who then was the sitting president, you have failed to provide security to the country, resign.
Okay.
So there's nothing new about what we said. There was nothing new. And when, in real terms, President Buhari was right then. If Jonathan had failed to protect Nigerians, it was the right thing to do for General Buhari then to say to Jonathan, resign.
Okay.
The same way we are saying. But that was then. Now the situation is a lot worse. A lot worse. And what is more worrying is not that we are less secure. We are living with daily fear. We are terrified. The insecurity is affecting the economy. It's affecting poverty. There's no light at the end of the tunnel. It's that this current situation doesn't appear to have an answer. We monitor the president daily. We read what everybody reads. We see the tears, we see the blood, we see the kidnappings, we see the killings, like everybody else. And the Northern Elders Forum is made up of people who have had, virtually all of us have had some considerable experience in one form or the other in the public service. We know about public management. We know when the government is on top of a situation. We know when it is not. And it is clear that President Buhari as a leader, and this is a country that has given one individual huge powers. Our federal system, Suleiman, was designed to give the center a huge amount of power, including defense and security and maintenance of law and order. That gives whoever is...
But some people are saying maybe that's even the problem, although that's not usually...
It is a problem to the degree that if it is not handled well, we end up where we are. You give one person, the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, immense powers. You give the center, the federal government, huge powers to protect citizens, to mobilize resources, to think about problems. When the person who is in charge, and then it created the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Armed Forces and handed over to him every single equipment or wherewithal to protect the country. And he doesn't do that. Either because he cannot do it, or he doesn't care enough to do it, or he's being sabotaged and he doesn't know how to identify saboteurs or not. Whatever the reason, the port of call, the buck stops on the desk of the President. We didn't ask anything extraordinary. We're not saboteurs. I'm not making an apology for what we did. We didn't do anything. We exercised a constitutional right to say what many people knew, to say, Mr. President, you were elected, and the Constitution also says you can actually leave, or you can be removed. Now, it is time for you to leave because you have failed to secure the country. And since then, we knew, even when we wrote and released that statement, we were speaking the minds of 99% of Nigerians. It is not just in the north.
But the presidency, they reacted to say that they don't want to join issues.
Yes, they did.
With the, and yet they did, that they don't want to join issues with you. In your opinion as an organization, were you thinking of joining issues with the president, or were you speaking what you feel to be fair and just?
Well, we're not trying to provoke the president. We were speaking to the president and to Nigerians. We were speaking the minds of Nigerians by saying the president has failed. And we don't need spectacular evidence to do that. We live it every day. Every single day, lives are lost, people are abducted, people are stolen. The specter is widening and widening and widening. Life means nothing under this administration. Blood means nothing. There's no law and order. People are not being prosecuted for being arrested or prosecuted. You don't hear. When was the last time you had any kidnapper or bandit arrested and processed? You don't hear about it. And yet it gets worse and worse. And we spoke to the president.
Okay.
And thank God we had the courage to say directly what other people might have thought. What is President Buhari doing? What President Buhari is doing is nothing. When the presidency responded, by saying to us or to Nigerians, this is high decibel.
Show in the media.
That was all they could say. They couldn't defend the president. They couldn't say he's winning the battle against the kidnappers. They couldn't say he's winning the battle against bandits. They couldn't prove that he was winning the war in the northeast. They couldn't say that IPOB is not strangulating the southeast. They couldn't say that a lot of opportunistic crimes are emerging and they are threatening the future of the country, not just the past. We're not just living in danger, but these crimes, these things that are happening have a tendency to accumulate and represent even greater threats to the country. Look at what we're beginning to hear, even from people who should know that there appears to be the emergence of some synergy between Boko Haram and bandits and kidnappers. And that is a worst case scenario, because you know what that means.
Absolutely.
You know, it's not, people say things like there are too many ungoverned territories in this country. And that's why bandits and kidnappers and Boko Haram do what they do. I'd like to remind those people, this is the same country that had these ungoverned territories all this time. Why is this?
When the population was even lower.
Yes. Why is it becoming a problem now? It's not that it is ungoverned. It is governed by other interests, not by the Nigerian state. The Nigerian state is giving room, all under the watch of a former general, a general in the military, a man who fought the Civil War, who fought another war, who promised Nigerians, give me your trust, give me power, and I will finish insecurity in this country. And look at where we are now. As we speak now, you are a journalist. If as we speak, what is going on with those people that were abducted on the trains? Who are they? What's going on? Where is the empathy? If you cannot protect us, at least lead us with some compassion. The day these things happened, the president sent the vice president. I'm not belittling the vice president. Why couldn't President Buhari, for goodness sake, show some milk of human kindness and go to Kaduna himself? Kaduna is his hometown, literally. Why couldn't he go to see those victims? These kind of things tell you one thing. One, that he is failing in his job as his first job to protect us. And two, really doesn't care enough. Now, a few people get upset when we speak in this language. So, oh, these are, like the presidential statement said, these are politicians who can't link up. None of us in the Northern Elders Forum. None of us in the audience in the Northern Elders Forum is a politician seeking for an office. None.
Okay.
We get no pleasure from talking in this way about President Buhari. We wanted him to succeed.
Okay.
We wanted him to succeed. Your editorial, Daily Trust editorial, said it is unbecoming for Northern Elders Forum to say these things about President Buhari because President Buhari is an elder, is a Northern elder. Yes, he is a Northern elder. And there is a way to speak to elders.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're looking at issues around the APC, that is the ruling party, as we head towards the primary elections. And with me, two APC insiders. So it's just natural for me to start with you right here in the studio, Prof. These issues of nomination, maybe we should start there.
Okay.
What's the motivation? What's the idea behind 100 million nomination for the presidency? Is the presidency for sale?
Thank you, Malam Suleiman. I think it would be right to say that it is extremely difficult for any ordinary member of the APC to imagine why either the NEC or the National Working Committee decided on a very huge amount. You recall that in 2015, the amount for nomination, I think an expression of interest for the presidency was at 45 million. And that also generated a lot of outcry. Ordinarily, the common conclusion will be that charging such a huge amount for expression of interest and nomination form will certainly exclude very eligible and good candidates from the contest. On the other hand, I'm sure those who only view politics from the purview of election and winning may think that it is proper to charge such high amount to exclude, or to stop the contest, especially at the primaries, from being overcrowded by contestants. But on the whole, and I think within the domain of politics, I don't think it is healthy for any political party, not just APC, to charge such an exorbitant price for nomination and expression of interest.
Thank you. So maybe let me call that a professor's view. Now, maybe the party insider's view. We have had about 8 to 10 candidates so far in the party. People who have been ministers, governors, vice presidents, and so on and so forth. Do you think any one of them will have problems in generating that fund, that amount of money for nomination?
Honestly, I don't know. But presumably, I think it is right to say that at least the majority of the contestants will be able to pay. Okay. I have no doubt about that.
They won't have any problem paying?
They may not wish that such an amount is charged, but certainly a sizable number of them will be able to pay.
Interesting. Mr. Abolaji, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Very
okay, very good. Now, for as a party member, what's your opinion regarding this amount, particularly not just for the presidency, but other offices? House of Reps, 10 million. House of Assembly, State House of Assembly, which is an office for young people who are having their first shot at elective offices, So 2 million naira, which for people like your presidential candidate may not be a lot of money, but for millions or thousands of Nigerians who are interested in those offices will be a lot of money. What's your reaction to this?
Good evening once again, and thank you for having me here. You have raised a very valid question with this, because everyone understands the economy we are going through right now. So once we put such exorbitant prices on the donation forms, even though someone like me, I wasn't expecting, it didn't come to me as a surprise, but for the demographic which we represent, and the kind of organizations which it's normal for us and ordinary Nigerians to raise eyebrows. But we must remember that in Nigeria alone, we have over 176,000 units. So the logistics and all these things, the parties are using this as a means, one of the means of raising funds. These funds are not going into personal accounts. These funds are going to be used towards, all the activities they are going to be having. So yes, it's a lot. Yes, the figures are high, but at this stage in our political, history, it's one of the things we have to go through. But we can't just look at the amount like that. We have to look back at the concessions that were made for the youths, for people with disabilities. There were some concessions made. So we have to.
How do we balance? Because
yes, sir.
How do we balance the justification you have provided now about parties raising funds for campaign activities with the issue that Professor Yauri raised earlier, that of the access, that eligible candidates will be muzzled out of the race, which may not just be bad for the party, but for the country as a whole, because the country will be denied their opportunity, their ideas, and their abilities, So how do you balance that in terms of balance the two as a party member?
Okay. Okay. Well, the prof is extremely right, because if there was someone like me who was actually thinking of running for any office, the press is going to, push me back a bit. But at the end of the day, it's the people who we know, who we have in mind, that are supposed to, run for office. It is something they can actually come up with, not just them directly. we have a lot of candidates or contestants, aspirants who are vying for different offices. They have people. There are different ways of raising funds now. You have all this GoFundMe here and there. And now I can give you this information for free just tonight. One of the organization where I am special advisor on strategy and information, Tinubu Support Organization, where the Director General is Honorable Aminu Suleiman. He say, the organization is going to pay for the party form, the nomination form for Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu. He has just signed a check of 100 million naira. This is just, this news is less than 30 minutes old. So you can go and confirm. So I expect that others as well. When we have candidates we believe in, I don't think there will be any amount too little for us, to actually come together and contribute, to support them, to show the parties that we are serious, we want this person, and we will do whatever it takes to make sure that this person can afford this, the fees that have been stated. Nevertheless, the amounts are on the high side, but the party hierarchy has taken a decision.
The amounts are on the high side, but if some organizations can afford it, no problem. Is that what we are saying?
No problem, sir, exactly.
All right, thank you. So, Prof, the issue of access is one thing. Issue of fundraising is another, because that's, to be honest, that's one of the ways in which Nigerian political parties raise funding. But what about the integrity of the election itself? For example, cases where candidates at the top end of the ticket pay, or aspirants, obtain the nomination forms for and pay for candidates at the lower rung of the same ticket. So if, for example, I am vying for the presidency, and then I buy like 10 nomination forms for governors, buy like 20 for senators and House of Reps, and so on. Is that not altogether monetizing or increasing the monetization of the election in ways that, like you said, may not be healthy?
I think, Mr. Suleiman, you have made it absolutely clear. If we have a scenario in which politicians who are of means ended up buying nomination form for themselves and then trickling down the process to governors, to local government chairmen, members of the National Assembly, and so on, we are evolving a political system centered around godfatherism, where you find one individual politician exercising absolute control over a whole lot of others. And that has the potential to create a problem for our democracy. Although partnerships, friendships, groupings are allowed in politics, but to a very large extent, every politician should have the opportunity and privilege to exercise some amount of freedom, especially when it comes to the exercise of power and authority, and when it comes to taking decisions for and on behalf of Nigerians. And that is why, if you take a look around what is happening in Nigeria today, you find politicians behaving like leaders of cult, asserting themselves over other politicians, suppressing the free will of other politicians even to aspire to contest for elections. You hear politicians claiming, I have sponsored so-and-so, I have raised so-and-so, from my enclave, this person was made who he is, and so therefore he doesn't have the privilege to think freely about his personal ambition as a politician, or even to take decisions that have to do with his role as a politician and leader in society. So you are absolutely correct. We have a problem when a large chunk of people cannot afford to take up nomination forms, to take up expression of interest forms on their own, and they ended up being controlled by politicians who have large chunk of money, and it therefore departs from a full democracy to another system where you see absolute control of the hierarchy from the top. People are controlling others down the line. Let me quickly say, like I have said in the beginning, that I have taken account of all the contestants on the platform of the All Progressive Congress. And I can tell you that a significant number of them, let's say 90%. I'm even thinking, even the last person to express his interest, was it Mala Aminu or who? I think they all have the capacity to generate the support, you know, from the electorate to be able to afford the nomination from. That is not a problem. But when you leave the office of the president, like you rightly said, and then you approach the states and local governments, you see where the dilemma is, where this system of charging exorbitant nomination forms will create a scenario.
50 million for a governor, for
50
example.
million for a governor, for example,
20 million
for Senate, and perhaps 10 million for
It's not
reps, and
perhaps,
2 million.
it's correct. 10 million for senators,
It has the potential
For reps.
to exclude quite a number of credible candidates.
You're welcome back. We're discussing Igbo presidency in 2023 with two Nigerians, like I said, who are both involved, but also standing aloof to observe issues. So, Mr. Ike, let's start with you. You know, this idea that we want an Igbo president, you know, what does it really mean that other Nigerians may not understand?
Thank you so much. Let me commend Daily Trust Television for finding this topic necessary, because it's germane to the political conversation going on. But there's a correction I want to make. The media has fallen into it. We're all victims.
Okay.
This thing about Igbo presidents is not normal. There is no position for contest in Nigeria called Igbo presidents. What we are looking for is Nigerian president of Igbo extraction.
Okay.
We have made too much noise about Igbo president, making it look as if it's only the Igbos that are ethnically involved in this term. We are looking for Nigerian president of Igbo extraction, because no person of Igbo extraction held that position. So it means a lot to so many people, depending on where you are. It became a national issue because the agitation, the claim of marginalization became so pronounced nationally that when you mention Igbo president, it's like another way of fighting injustice, another way of fighting inequality, another way of creating sense of belonging in the polity. So to so many people, when you hear Igbo presidency, even in the conversation going on, Igbo presidency means righting the wrong.
Okay.
And that is the discussion going on. The debate, the discussion about Igbo president, Nigerian president of Igbo extraction is about righting the wrong, trying to give a sense of belonging to every part of this country. And that is the conversation ongoing. The agitation for it is give a sense of belonging to every part of this country. And that is the meaning to an ordinary Igbo man, to any other person who may not be an Igbo but who is fighting for justice.
Thank you. So, Dr. Ifeanyi, part of the issues here is the conversation about Igbo presidency that Mr. Ike talked about. How do you understand this conversation? Does it have a national spread, for example, or is it a conversation that is largely one-sided, you know, that only people, Nigerians of Igbo extraction are engaging in, but other Nigerians seem either uninterested or they couldn't just care? Is it a national conversation or a conversation being held by one group of Nigerians and not heard by others?
Thank you very much. I would start by aligning myself with Mr. Aboy.
Yeah.
The alignment is to the extent that what is the thematic conversation is Nigerian president. Last time on this platform, I defined the kind of president we should be looking for. President with credentials to speak with our economy. President with credentials to speak to the security challenges we have. Presidency with a credential to bring back unity. A credential that is capable of unifying Nigerians and moving us forward from where we are. We've made progress, but we are not where we should be. Now, why is it that, you see, the Toga Igbo presidency is like giving a dog a bad name to hang it. It's a bad name. We are looking for a president for the Federal Republic of Nigeria of Igbo extraction. Why? That will give credence to the quest for inclusiveness.
Okay.
That will put paid to the issue of equity and fairness, not equality, equity and fairness. That will give succor to the founding fathers of Nigeria. And the pilots then were largely of the Igbo extraction. Nnamdi Azikiwe, a business mongo, Odumegwu Ojukwu. These gave themselves and their resources to birth today what is known as Nigeria. When Queen Elizabeth visited Nigeria, the whole entity and country called Nigeria then could not afford a vehicle she could ride on. Chief Odumegwu Ojukwu brought out his Rolls Royce, a Nigerian of Igbo extraction. So you see where we're coming from. Okay. Therefore, the idea of a Nigerian president of Igbo extraction is an idea whose time is overdue.
Okay. Let
me tell you why. Up until the time of President Goodluck Jonathan, that was between 2011 to 15. You know, the conversation was that since after the Nigerian Civil War, there was a surreptitious, seemingly so, design by default not to allow people of that extraction to come to the positions of service chief, be it police inspector, chief of army staff, chief of defense staff. They were staved off that kind of position. So when Jonathan came, we had people like Ihejirika come close, we had Onovo come close. That put paid, that, assuaged that agitation. Now, what we're looking
at... Today we have Irabo as chief of defense staff.
Yes, Irabo is from the South.
Okay.
Yes, we must call a spade, not a farm implement. When you mentioned the alleged interest of the current CBN governor, and they also say is of Igbo extraction, they are also people, when the chiefs will come to that, they are from the South. Rotimi Amechi, the other day he said people should not forget that his Amechi is of Igbo extraction. When he was governor in Rivers State, did he say so? So these are issues to be put in perspective. For me, the truth is this. Nigeria needs to get beyond where it is now. And we need candidates. We need individuals who have pedigree, who could show what they have done in the past, how sincere, how they held forth in integrity and good conscience.
Thank you. So, but Mr. Ike, this is all fair and good, you know. The issue is, in a democracy, in a complex, diverse democracy such as ours, it is fine to hold one opinion. It's a whole different thing to be able to sell that opinion convincingly to other countrymen, you know. The debate around Igbo presidency suffers from this, you know. When people say Igbo presidency, which is why the strategic shift from Igbo presidency to a president of Igbo extraction now is even necessary, actually, you know. So that it is when other Nigerians hear Igbo presidency, they hear something different. They hear a demand. They hear, you know, and so on. So do you think that in terms of communicating this this idea, because there is no doubt it will do some of the things that he said. You know, there is no doubt about that. If you have situation where people can be elected president from even once, it will, you know, finish all the idea. It cannot be done. That will end. You know. So do you think that the way it has been communicated has also helped in bringing it to, you know, delaying it?
To a large extent, you know, when there's a strategic blackmail, there's a limit to how you can convey to prejudiced mindsets.
Interesting.
You understand? The issue of Southeast or Igbos is such that you always hear Igbos are not united, Igbos don't like themselves, all that kind of story. And I keep challenging every ethnic group in this country. Stay out of power for 10 years and see how you like yourself. Stay out of power for 20, 30 years and see how united you can be. The almighty Fulani, if I may use that word, within the 8 years of Olusegun Obasanjo, were they not there scrambling for power, scrambling for relevance? When Jonathan and Ijoma was president, was all the three major ethnic groups who were the king, the umbrella of Nigeria, were they not there succumbing to the Ijoma? Igbos have been out of power for a very long time. And every time you say Igbos are not united, Igbos, they don't like themselves, their politics is this, they don't like anybody, all those things. There is no time they contested the election in Nigeria that, even if it's zoned to the north, that one northerner will emerge. There hasn't been any time. There will always be plurality of candidates. The same thing in the southwest. So why is the Igbo case so exceptional? I'm just giving you a background of the blackmail, that is going on. And this is the blackmail that is being put in this Nigerian 2023 project. Consensus. Igbos, if you want this thing, go and get consensus. Go and beg, go and involve other Nigerians. How do you involve other Nigerians? What are other Nigerians looking for? They are looking for a competent, legible president who will turn Nigeria around.
Welcome back. This is Daily Politics on Trust TV, and we're discussing the consequences of the Abuja-Kaduna attack, particularly on the victims of that attack who have been in captivity throughout this month. And with me to discuss this issue is Professor Usman Yusuf. Sir, you're welcome to Daily Politics once again.
Thank you for having me.
So maybe let me start with this issue. Why there hasn't been any significant update, you know, between the past 3 weeks to date, you know, and the only thing we have seen is, okay, the federal government announced, the president announced 2 or 3 days ago that all the people that have been in captive under, you know, various captivity must be rescued by the. Does this really solve the problem, this kind of directives?
Right. There was it an editorial by Daily Trust some time ago, or an opinion page, empty directives. I've counted the number of directives the president has given to his war commanders, to his service chiefs, that have not been complied with. So this is one of the many. I mean, what in insane crimes, the most important Nigerians here now is not you and I, but the relatives of the victims. Nobody. First of all, the Kaduna State government, that is on their tough that these things happen. The Kaduna State government has not thought it's necessary to meet with the families of these victims. The Ministry of Transportation, under whose carriage this thing happened. Anyone that enters a train has a contract with the Ministry of Transportation to deliver me safely to wherever my destination is. And they failed. Nobody in the Ministry of Transportation met with the families of these victims. I saw video clips of some members of the families trying to go to the Federal Ministry of Transportation. Nobody would see them. They were blocked.
But the Minister of Transportation, Rotimi Amechi, he visited the scene of the attacks.
The scene means nothing. The most important thing are the victims. Are the victims. But after visiting the scene, what did he do? He went to Port Harcourt and was jumping around like Usain Bolt, declaring presidency. When people are in the forest that he should be responsible for, are in the forest. This is very insensitive of the government, and it cannot be accepted. I urge all Nigerians, especially our clerics, during this Ramadan to raise their voices. The government needs to govern with the milk of humanity, and I don't see that. We have met family members of these victims over the last week. We've had heartbreaking stories. The son of an 85-year-old sick woman, 85-year-old taken into the forest. The husband of a wife who is pregnant. The son of a mother who is in the forest. The brother of a husband and a wife who is in the forest. The grandfather of little children that are in the forest. And the relative of a person who has sustained gunshot wound. The federal government, they have not thought it prudent to address, to at least discuss with, listen to the families of these relatives. That is very insensitive and is not acceptable. It's not acceptable.
What could be the motivation? Could it be maybe there are underground moves that they are making that maybe if they make any statement in public that might jeopardize such underground moves?
No, Suleiman, nobody is asking them to make any public statement. In this kind of cases, insane crimes, President Biden will be in the place and meet with the family.
Sure.
One-on-one, away from the camera. President Biden would meet with the family. If we could assemble them to come from Kaduna and Abuja, assemble them and hear their stories and see what we can do. People that are paid to do this, not done that. Where is the governor of Kaduna State? Where is the Minister of Transportation? Where is the National Security Advisor? Where is the Minister of Defense? Where is the Minister of Police Affairs? Where is the IGP? None of them have thought it right to settle down with these relatives and listen to them, or the DGSSS. It is their responsibility, it's the failings of the government that they find themselves in the situation they're in. So it's not acceptable. All Nigerians must raise their voices and at least get the government to meet with the families of these victims and then update the nation. What is happening? What are they doing? The Ministry of Transportation has not told us. If you look at the manifest, they said 362 tickets were sold.
Yes.
But in the train, it was reported there were 970 people. So 3 times the number of tickets that were sold. This is clear ticket racketeering.
That's one of the major issues, because we don't, even now, we don't know certainty.
Right. Nobody is telling us
how many people are actually missing.
Absolutely. Nobody is telling us with certainty how many killed, how many injured, how many died after the attack, how many abducted, how many escaped. Whose responsibility is it? It is the responsibility of the Kaduna State government because it is within their turf, and the Ministry of Transportation. Nobody is talking to the relatives, and nobody is talking to Nigerians. This is not right. It is not acceptable.
So another issue beyond just the victims, also maybe is there any legal dimension to this? For example, some train tickets come, with insurance claims or whatever already enrolled, or even if there is not so, is there anything someone can do to compensate? Because some of these victims may be breadwinners, so they will leave behind families who now are probably even struggling to take care of themselves, on top of the anguish of having their breadwinner in captivity presently.
Right. I'm sure the relatives are seeking legal opinions. And the legal opinion they seek will be what guides them going forward.
For example, suing the NRC or even the federal government itself?
Whoever is responsible for this. If we go on a plane and something happens, the airline is responsible. The owner of those trains is the federal government under the Federal Ministry of Transportation. The Federal Minister of Transportation is not talking to us. The Governor of Kaduna State is not talking to us. The Minister of Defense is not. The National Security Advisor is not. The Minister of Police Affairs is not. So for goodness sake, who is responsible? Who is going to take responsibility? It's not acceptable. And I urge all Nigerians, especially our clerics, during this month of Ramadan, to raise their voices. Our people are in the forest. People that have sustained gunshot wounds. 85-year-old sick woman, a pregnant woman, children, the aged, the sick.
These are the families of those who have been abducted.
No, those that are in the forest, the sick, those that need their medications.
Including an 85-year-old woman.
85-year-old sick woman. We spoke with her father, with her son. He was talking to us and crying. I came back home, I was telling my wife, I could see tears running in her eyes. Because she has an 85-year-old mother living with us, sick. For goodness sake, government, govern with the milk of humanity. Don't shut yourself from people. These are human beings, these are people. During this month of Ramadan, you break the fast, you will eat all the good things. Think about, say a prayer to those that are in the forest.
Thank you. So, but the abductors of these people have so far released 2 videos, making demands on the federal government. But the state government says that the Kaduna state government, it has a policy of not negotiating at all with terrorists or bandits. Is that policy also in the federal government? And if that is the case, how does it affect the chances of survival of these victims?
Right. Suleiman, don't get me started with the way the governor of Kaduna State has been handling security in his state. I've said it severally in this program, several programs, that he's failed. And he said as much on a radio, on a BBC Hausa interview radio on the 31st of March, I think, when he visited victims in Giwa. He admitted he has failed and you're seeking forgiveness. Well, this is a latter-day repentance. The way he's been handling security is the most irresponsible way a leader would handle security. And to continue talking, especially when he talks on Hausa platforms, and there's bandits hear him, they think he's daring them. Leaders must be circumspect. So I don't want to talk about
consequences on raising.
So I don't want to talk about the way Kaduna State governor has been handling security.
The federal
government. The federal government cannot afford to stay aloof. Must be involved. Whatever it's doing, if it's doing it quietly, it doesn't have to come and tell us. But at least tell the family quietly that we're doing something. It doesn't have to come and tell us, because they came out, these terrorists came out. These are not regular ragtag bandits. And I've said it severally. Over the 2 years that we've been going into the forest, Shegumi would talk to me with a sense of urgency that we need to get to these bandits before this Boko Haram ISWAP gets to them with their twisted religious ideologies. And so now they have gotten to them. For the first time, there is this marriage. The first time we saw that train attack, we knew this is not the handiwork of ragtag bandits. The pointers are there. The audacity of the attack. Number one. Number two, hitting infrastructure and using bombs, explosives. That's not the modus operandi of bandits. Infrastructure, remember, Maiduguri, Nigerians may not know, the capital city of Borno State, Maiduguri, has been without electricity now for 16, 17 months because Boko Haram blew the transmission line into Maiduguri.